For the number 2 pick in the Sunday 6-pack, I'm going with the Dallas Cowboys as 4-point favorites at home against the Atlanta Falcons. Dallas going against the Rams on the road. That was Rams all day for me. I bet the Rams at, not even 3, but 2.5 when it first opened. I think you had the Rams at 2.5 on the show last week. It was just a situation where Dallas coming out with some new pieces on the O-line just wasn't a great spot for them. Coming back home against Atlanta, who another team that I've been probably more down on than the consensus, but this line, I know Dallas is dealing with some injuries. They lost the tight end Blake Jarwin. They lost Leighton Vander Esch, which is somewhat of a big deal, especially with Sean Lee already out. But this line is creeping down to where it was, I think, 7 or 6 at one point, and it's all the way down to 4. It'll probably jump around as the week progresses, but I think it's an overreaction to Dallas losing as a favorite, or as well. I think they close as an underdog or a pick. I don't know, but I think it's an overreaction to Dallas losing. Atlanta is a team that I'd be a lot more concerned about. Atlanta actually did close as a favorite. They did end up losing, getting blown out. But you look at Atlanta's defense, and I think this was the issue that I was concerned about. The issue why I thought they weren't as good. Last season, they really picked it up on defense in the second half. Everyone was saying Raheem Morris took over. This defense is better. He made the adjustments. He found the magic potion. And then they come into, week 1. They're at home. They're going against Seattle. They're kind of a pick. They're a favorite, depending on the book. 31 of 35 passing. 322 yards, 4 touchdowns, no picks. One of the incompletions, one of the 4 incompletions they let up on 35 passes was a drop. No picks. Another 3 for 29 on the ground from Russ. And now you're facing Dak Prescott with 3 really good receivers. The tight end is going to be the least influential part of this Dallas offense. You're going from a team in the Rams who had Jalen Ramsey and Troy Hill, who's a very underrated corner. They're meeting all these Cowboys receivers at the ball, at the catch point. They're forcing incompletions. They're knocking balls away. Just not going to happen with Atlanta's defense. I expect a huge game from Dak. He's in the running to be the number 1 overall quarterback in fantasy. Dak Prescott in his career versus sub-500 teams. And the Falcons aren't just 0-1. They were 7-9 the past 2 years. So I feel comfortable calling them a sub-500 team. But Dak against sub-500 teams in his career, 16-6 against the spread, 73%. And then Dan Quinn, and coming off a loss, which is usually when you find value on a team, especially like the Falcons, who are very capable of backdoor covering because of that offense with Julio and Matt Ryan. After a loss, the Falcons are just 14-22 against the spread. After a straight-up loss, they're 14-22 against the spread. In the next game, just a 39% cover rate with Dan Quinn at the helm. The Falcons tend to come up small in big spots. So fading the Falcons in a line that's creeping, in their favor away from Dallas, I think it's unwarranted. This is a game that Dallas can win. The offensive line issues aren't going to matter as much, and they still have a pass rush just enough so that Matt Ryan, they're going to put up yards, but Dallas went 2 of 5 in the red zone. Atlanta, I think Dallas is going to hold Atlanta out of the red zone a couple of times, just like they did the Rams. We know Julio struggles to score touchdowns. And on the other side, Atlanta allowed 4 of 4 in the red zone to Seattle. And Dallas struggled in the red zone against the Rams. I think it's going to kind of flip around. So love Dallas as the slightly over a field goal favorite. I make this game Dallas by 5.5, and that's not even as aggressive as some people. A corner has it at 6, and you have it at 6.2. So, I think there's kind of some consensus agreement here that this line is a little bit too low.
Yeah, I think the Cowboys are the side here, especially at 4. Obviously, since I make it over 6, some of the injuries are concerning. I mean, I do look at that. The Atlanta's a tough team to crack. I mean, one of the things I was looking for from their defense this year is the importance of A.J. Terrell at corner. And they needed him. They need him to be really good. They need him to be a number 1 corner good for a rookie. And last week he lined up on the outside in almost all, I think like 90% of their defensive snaps. He gave up a completion every time he was targeted. So
Well, the whole
he has
team
a
did,
lot.
essentially.
Yeah,
Right?
well, he has a lot of work. He has a lot of work to do. Now, if you look at the box score, this is why. So the defense is just not going to be great. And I actually, would be one of my overlooks of the week. Both teams are going to play relatively fast. They're going to throw the ball a lot, and there should be a lot of yards. Now, if you look at that final score last week, Seattle won 38-25. I mean, Atlanta put up 500 yards. They both averaged 6.6 yards per play. The difference came in, Atlanta had 2 turnovers. Seattle didn't. Seattle went for it on 4th down and scored a touchdown. Atlanta went 0 for 4 on 4th downs, and they failed in the red zone once. But that's what Atlanta does. They get all these yards, and then they'll have like a 4th and short. They'll get into the red zone. They can't punch it in. Then they'll end up going for it, and they won't get it. So, like, they just have these misleading box scores a lot. So, yeah, I mean, Dallas is maybe still trying to figure some things out in their secondary with this new defensive scheme, which could be a little dangerous against Atlanta's passing attack. But I agree with you. I think all the value here is with Dallas, and I would look for it over, especially if you can get a 51 or lower.
Two things before we move on to the next pick. Number one, you said Atlanta is a deceiving box score team, and that's so true. And what does that come down to a lot of the time? Coaching. When the coaching's not there, you have good numbers overall, but the situational football is not there. The underlying, the numbers in the key spots aren't there. And usually we talk about regression for those things, but then you look at those trends, like Dan Quinn off a loss, just 39% against the spread in his next game. And there's certain teams that just doesn't regress when you have what I consider to be substandard coaching. And number two, Bill Barnwell of ESPN made a great point before the season in talking about the Falcons. He's like, every year Matt Ryan has a great, pretty good quarterback rating, Matt Ryan in that offense. And every year the Falcons defense has allowed an even higher quarterback rating than the Falcons offense has. So the Falcons are a team that a lot of people are going to probably, bet on more than they should, or they're going to be afraid to bet against because of that offense. But just remember that their defense has proven to be, even with a supposed defensive head coach in Dan Quinn, it's time and time again proven to be even worse, than that offense is good, to the point where it offsets it. So, yeah,